So without a clear sense of who you are, you would live a life weighed down by other people's opinions of you and your inability to transmit the essence of who you were created to be. You would wake up every day and war with yourself because you're living a life that's a misrepresentation of your essence. And the only way to live life meaningfully is, or to serve those whom you were called to serve, is to gain an understanding of and to walk in the power of who you were created to be. And so, hello everyone, and welcome to Ibi Speaks. My name is Ibinabo and Enebi. And in case you're wondering what this channel is all about, my channel is about encouraging, inspiring, and enlightening you. And I do this by featuring everyday people like you and me, thought leaders and experts, to share their stories and their expertise. And because I believe that our stories and expertise are not just ours to keep, but they are content enough to share, because they are the streetlights and survival kits for those coming behind us. So if you're looking for content about personal development then, or personal growth, this is the channel for you. So I started a series titled Avoiding the Later Life Crisis series. And the series is aimed at, sharing insights on how to do things better so that you don't end up with a crisis in future. And I've had 3 episodes already under this series. So you might want to check it out. I think today's episode is the 4th installment in the series, and it's titled Understanding the Power of Walking in Your Identity. And to do justice to this topic is my special guest, Tonbra Nwosuagwu. Tonbra.
It is a delight to be here. Thank you for having me, Ibinabo. I am super excited for the conversation that we're about to have because of its importance and just how much, understanding it helps humanity.
Fantastic. So before we delve into the conversation properly, I just want to give a brief overview of who you are. And I must say that you have a very impressive resume, but I'll just give, just a quick short one so people can have a background understanding of the essence of Tonbra. So known as the Activator, Tonbra is the founder of the More Collective, a catalytic community of women intentional about personal growth and inner fulfillment. She holds an M.Sc with distinction in process engineering from the University of Surrey, United Kingdom, and a B.Sc in Petroleum Engineering from the University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Being a speaker and a host of the Transformational Created for More podcast, she also runs a podcast boot camp that has helped many podcasters start their podcast. She lives with her husband in the United Kingdom and raises 2 beautiful daughters with him. And so, I just want to say that at the end of this conversation, I hope that you would gain knowledge on how to identify yourself, your true self, and to discover the power inside of you to avoid a later life crisis. And I want to say, to my viewers and for those who are watching or listening, to say thank you very much for joining me today. Listen, I'm so appreciative that you've taken your time out here to be here today. And listen, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. It's Ibinabo and Enebi, and you can follow me on my social media handles, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. So back to you, Tonbra. I just want to say thank you so much for taking your time off your busy schedule to be here today. And before we start, I just want to say something. I listened to your Created for More podcast. It's fantastic. I love your passion. You speak with so much conviction and fire.
Yes, I believe every single word that I say, I back it with every single fiber of my being, and I'm intentional about how I release them because I believe that they are life to those who hear them. So yes, that is why I do what I do, to reach people and impact them. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I'm looking forward to what we have to say today, or what you have to say today. So, the topic is understanding the power of walking in your identity, and of course, it's something that you're very passionate about. But before we talk about it, let's start with a very simple question. What is the concept of self-identity?
I like that. It's a really, really good question. And identity really is the concept of it. It's a point of reference, is what I would say when I think about what an identity is. It is the understanding of who you are and what you are, right? Who you are, what you are, how you are, and where you are. And when I say where you are, it's an evolutionary stage because your where changes. So if I had to summarize and give the definition for identity, I would say it is the sum total of our self construct. So it is who you are in the present, what you know about yourself. It's been underpinned by the backdrop and your past experiences, and it then impacts the projection that you have of yourself in the future. So, identity is very, very important because once you understand who you are in the totality of yourself, you're then able to take good references from your past and have good projections of your future. So, it's the sum total of your self construct, including your past and the future.
Now, I was taking notes because now I understand what you mean by saying that everything that you say is deliberate and intentional, and you believe everything that you say with every fiber in your being. And I absolutely believe it. Now, this is it's a very rich definition of the concept, of self-identity. And now this brings me to the next question. When I think about the concept of self-identity, I think about purpose as well. So is there any difference between the purpose, or are they interwoven?
So, your purpose is part of your identity.
Okay.
So, your purpose is what almost, you know, has necessitated. I'll use that word. The creation of you, right? So when I define identity, I define it based on 5 core layers. I call it the head to toe method of really understanding and embedding who we are, right? So the head, right, is understanding your head, where you come from. So the head, if you look at your head is sort of like the central part of you. Where have you come from? And for me, I don't believe that, anything can be said of us unless it's, linked to who created us. That is the eternal source. That is our God. So in that, I call it our layer of divinity. And our layer of divinity is what anchors us to what is greater than who we are, right? So you know that you're divine, you know that there is something that is much bigger than you. That is your layer of divinity. The second phase is what I would call sort of like your your heart, right? I would say that is your purpose. So if you look at the head to toe method, the second is your heart. So your heart is central to all of what you are. It is the lifeblood of you, and it is what pumps blood around every part of your being. So your heart is your layer of purpose. So this is what describes what the being that is greater than you was thinking when they created you. So, what is it that you have come on this earth to do? That is your layer of purpose, right? So, you must know your divinity, you must know your purpose. The third is what I call your hands, right? And your hands, I refer to this as your layer of endowments. So, your endowments are the gifts that you have been given to facilitate the purpose that you have been sent to support what the divine one sent you to do, right? So your layer of purpose, your layer of endowment speak to your natural abilities, your natural proclivities, the things that you can do that are better than what the way other people do them, right? Those are your endowments. And if you don't know your purpose, this is what I say that is often helpful to people. If you don't feel like you know your purpose, your endowments give you an indication of what your purpose is. Like a farmer who goes to the farm, he may not know he's a farmer, but when he looks around, he's in a farm and he has a hoe, he has all the farming implements. They start to guess, like, okay, this might be what I'm meant to be and use to deliver my purpose, right? The
Hmm.
next one is the fourth one. So 5 levels. The fourth one, I call it our layer, which is I call it our legs. So not our foot, but just our legs. The thing that helps us stand right, right? So this layer is called our layer of influence. And when I speak about this layer, the way that I use to it, explaining in a way that is easy for people to understand, it speaks to what we stand for, what we value, what we represent overarchingly. So our value system, a lot of them have been formed in childhood. So your mom gives birth to you and she says, "This is a cup." You believe that it is because she said so. Before you had an opportunity to make good meanings or personal meanings from things, you were taught the meanings of the people who took care of you, the meanings of society, the meanings of culture, the meanings of everything around you, right? So you, in effect, and say, okay, these are the things that I've known previously, but this is how I choose to look at them going forward. So that's your layer of influence. What has influenced you in your growing up? So if like a seed that is coming out of the ground, everything that I spoke about earlier, the divinity, the purpose, and the endowments,
Hands, yeah.
they are all under the ground. But influence starts to happen once you shoot out of the ground. So
Hmm.
the sun, the light, what mommy said, that's why you have people who have been, who don't have maybe good self-esteem because their parents, when they were young, maybe compared them to their siblings, told them they were not good enough. All of that happens. So that is where parts of a lot of people's identity gets fractured, right? And then the final stage is the feet. So imagine the feet and you're going around, you leave footprints as you're going around. That is your layer of manifestation. That is how we show up in the world. That is how we are seen. So today, at some point, you're a student, Ibinabo. At some point, you become a mom. At some point, become a wife. Sorry, I didn't say it in the right order, but anyways, you get my meaning.
Okay.
At some point, you were your staff, and the manifestation layer is the most transient of layers. It buckets us into roles. And a lot of times in this role is where a lot of people get it wrong as well. So you say, my identity is a mother. No, you are much more than a mother. There is a divinity element of you. There's a purpose element of you. There is an endowment, a gift element of you. There are the value system element of you. You being a mom is a role you embody as part of your identity. It's not the totality of who you are, right? So this is what
Yeah.
to, the manifestation layer is the most transient of layers because as you go through life, it changes. But the other layers, understanding them well enough, underpin you such that you don't get carried away with the change. You are set. You're like cement. You are set. So whether you're showing up as a mom, the essence of Ibinabo is set underneath her. So it doesn't matter. I show up as a mom, I show up as a wife. I show up in all of my glory wherever I show up. So once you understand each of these, that is when you're starting to get this sum total of our self-construct that I described at the beginning. That's the sum total of who you are.
Fantastic. Tonbra, you know what? I've been writing. I'm more like a student than an interviewer, because first and foremost, I'm mesmerized and like blown away completely. And you were talking and I was writing. And the way you analyzed purpose and the way you intersected the meaning of identity and purpose, I mean, your explanation is one of the best that I've heard in my life, or rather, your summation of it and your analysis of it is one of the best that I've heard in my life. You talk about head, which has got to do with the divinity, what the divine has constructed us to be. The heart is, is our purpose, what we hear, because we have to, the divinity and the heart has to align, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has to align, because, and I suppose that is where the whole concept of the misrepresentation of our identity comes from. Right. I think that our head, our heart, and our feet is what throws a lot of us off. Because sometimes, Tonbra, we have the hands. Sometimes we have the legs. But there is always a disconnection between the head, the heart, and the legs. Because those are the things that are constantly, being questioned. Because mind you, the battle is in the heart, it's in the mind. Who are you? And how does who you are transmit in your mind, in your heart? And how do those transmissions affect your manifestation? So at some point, you're a mother, you're a wife, you're a sister, you are this, that, and the other. And you're so right in saying that sometimes, or not sometimes, a lot of times, we get lost in the translations of the roles that we play and the duties that we perform. And that is where the identity crisis comes from. Because sometimes we get the endowments right. Well, I know how to write, I can sing. And sometimes we have our values right. I believe in integrity, in honesty, I am a self-starter, I'm a good team player. But the disconnection is always the head, the heart, and the feet.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
And that is where a lot of us have the problem.
When anything is out of alignment, the entire thing goes out of kilter. Like we just get, there's like a kink. So when you find people really, really, really living in harmony, living from a place of peace, from a place of conviction, from a place of inner belief and inner knowing, a lot of time it's because there is harmony, there's a convergence in all of these layers. So you find that such people don't engage in lower conversations. And when I say lower conversations, when people come and say, "Oh, but why did you do this? Why da 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 da?" and they're going off and on. If you know if you know what you're about, if you know the gifts that you have, if you know how you're showing up and your values, you don't engage everything, because you protect yourself, you protect your time, because that is the currency through which you dissipate this identity that you are to the world.
Yeah, fantastic. And Tonbra, I want to ask this question, right? Because I feel that, again, it is also very important because, again, people also find themselves stuck
Mhm.
in that way. So we've identified, for example, that the head, the heart, and the feet has to align. But again, there's some people that have the endowments. And again, that's where some people are not really focused. So some people cannot connect the endowments to the head, to the heart, and to the feet. So how can we come to a point aligning or having the endowments sync with everything else?
If someone gives you I'll use a spoon, for instance.
Okay.
If someone gives you a spoon, if you don't know what that spoon is for, you will carry that spoon and use it as a hairbrush. You carry that spoon, and it might not, it probably won't do well in those different, exposures. You can carry that spoon and you try and use it as a knife. You can carry that spoon and try and use it as a hairbrush. You can even carry the spoon and tie it on your neck and try and use it as a neck piece, right? So a lot of people get into this zone where they haven't understood what their endowments are for. They use them incorrectly. And that's what results in people getting stuck. They either over maximize and use it in a way that really, really destroys its what it was meant to be in a way. Remember, there is a purpose. Remember, the endowment has a purpose. So it might be the purpose might be the endowment might be a spoon, right? But the purpose that is linked to that particular endowment is a salad or a soup spoon. The purpose that is linked to a particular endowment is usually specific. It's either a soup spoon. You know, when you go out to these fancy dinners, they'll give you all the different, there's a soup spoon, there is a normal spoon for eating, there's a dessert spoon. So the point I'm trying to make is that endowments are specific. They are specific to particular purposes. So we have to, and if I wanted to answer that question with one word, I would use the word awareness. You can enter into something you haven't caught a vision of. You can't enter into something you are not on, you don't have a full understanding of. So it's coming to an awareness of, hey, first of all, understanding that you were created by one and sent on earth with a particular purpose. In fact, the only reason you are here on earth is because you had a purpose. If you didn't have a purpose to serve here, you wouldn't have been born at all. There were 10,000, how many thousand sperms racing for the ovaries, and you made it.
Billions.
Billions, exactly. And you made it, and you made it for a particular reason because the purpose of the divine was upon you for a particular purpose. And you were given
Fantastic.
for that purpose. So when you get stuck is when you don't really, really come into the awareness of the purpose as it relates to your endowment.
Now, I want to ask you the next question, right? You said it took me several years to come into the knowledge of my true identity and to understand the power I carried inside of me. So I want us to talk about gaining the knowledge of your true identity. I suppose then that I think you have mentioned, the five. So the head, the the heart, the hands, the legs, and the feet. You have mentioned it, but then for the sake of let me say, some people, reason in a systematic way. So for the sake of those of us who are going to be listening to you systematically, we want to put it on we want to put the answers on the specifics. So how is self-identity discovered? Is it through the observations of people about me, or is it through the visions that I have of myself?
So I would say that my own I started self-identifying through I would say the third and the fourth layers. And I always say this: your endowments are always the most indicative. You might not know what the purpose of the endowment is, but knowing that endowment itself, you and I were speaking earlier, and you were saying, look, I was writing, I didn't quite, by the time you were writing and you had all this showing of poetic gifts, you didn't understand what it was meant for. You didn't understand that one day you would have a platform, you'd be doing what you're doing, you would be trying to bless people. You didn't really get that. And I dare say that you still don't get the full picture.
I don't
get the full picture. And that is fine. That is fine, because as we evolve, it is not a destination. Self-discovery isn't a destination. There is never a place you get to that you say, I have fully discovered myself. A good Bible says that the path of the just, it shines brighter and brighter and brighter unto a new day.
Perfect day.
So we have been made in the image and the likeness of God, right? We are gods. Know ye that ye are gods. So what that means in effect is that trapped inside of me and in my DNA is an infinite depth of abilities, of capabilities that I get to find out and uncover as I journey through life. So it's like an onion, but like an infinite onion that you start to peel. And the deeper you go, the more refined it becomes. When I first started knowing myself, I wasn't speaking in the way that I'm speaking now. But come in 2-3 years, I'm not going to be speaking in this way. And it's okay. It's okay to honor your process. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to continue to journey into yourself, right? And to answer your question, my own discovery, right, of myself didn't start from, oh, there is something unique and divine about me. And that's why this is like the layers of your identity is like a slice of cake. Like if you cut a cake, how you would see the divinity but sometimes it's not systematic in the way that we uncover it. Some people might start and say, okay, I have been influenced in a way that I don't really like. And then they start to uncover that side of themselves. Some people start to find purpose first. Some people will find it endowments. For me, it was my endowments. I just knew that there was something that was different about the way I was able to engage with people. Most times people would say to me, Tom, I don't know why, but when you speak to me, I get a fire. I don't know why, but when you speak to me, there is something that just comes alive. There's something that just makes me, feel better about myself. So that was the first glimpse for me. First glimpse of my endowment. I had the gift of being able to speak, right? So I started that. Okay. Then I started going into the next one I started to uncover for me was really this area around, influence. I started to peel back layers of cloaks, things that had covered me. I started going to my story and I said, okay, what are the key cornerstones of the experiences that I have had in life and how did they impact me? What are some core beliefs that I am operating under? Right? So when I started to do that for myself, I started to see, okay, I grew up like this when I was growing up. I didn't have an iota of self esteem. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like, I felt I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel worthy like than my next door, the sister or brother by my side. There was just always something I felt lesser than most people. So if you put three people on the same stage as me who are doing the same thing, I would feel lesser than them because on the inside, I had been influenced to feel that way. Because when I was growing up, my mother would often wake me up from sleep crying. Obviously, she was so broken. She would cry and cry and cry and say, I don't know why, Tonbra, you know, I don't know why, your dad doesn't want you. I don't know why, she was, I grew up feeling very broken. I was put into a boarding school at the age of 5, and at the age of 7, 6.5, my mom puts a backpack on me, takes a taxi and says, that's your dad's house. She points in the distance and then she left. So I felt rejection. I felt this sense of abandonment. I felt this sense of lack of importance. So those were the things that I wore around me, you know? So when I started coming into saying, okay, I have this endowments, but these are the things that I've mastered. So I started going into each core belief, started going into the stories because human beings are meaning making machines. All we do is make meaning from experiences. And at that young age, the only meaning I could take from those experiences were that, you know what, I wasn't wanted. There was no space for me in this world. So when I started to really uncover it, I said, okay, so what does this mean if my mom was waking me up in the night and crying? Does that mean that I was bad, or does that mean that she didn't know the right way to control herself and to manage her feelings in a way that protects a child? So I started taking new meanings. So I started re-influencing myself. I said, I don't want to be this way. I don't want to see myself in this way. So I started taking on new meanings, writing new stories about my life. So I said, okay, I started looking into this whole rubble of what I knew and believed about myself. And I said, okay, what are the successes? What's the gold in here? What are some things that have been refined in me as a result of the experiences that I have had? And then I started looking, I said to myself, oh, wow, because of the experiences that I've, guess what? I have a burden for brokenness. Now I work with women. Anytime I see a broken woman, a woman who doesn't understand herself, I remember what it was like when I was a child. And I want to help her. I want to fix the paradigm that she's carrying around so she has a right and restored sense of self image. So now I realized that I wanted to do right. I wanted to do better with this gift that I had. So now I've started coming into purpose because now I've translated and I realize that this thing that I'm good at didn't just happen by accident. It happened because it was for a reason, and the divine that connected me to this earth brought me through this path for a reason.
Exactly.
Why
Exactly.
me that was born in the way that I was born?
Exactly.
Why was it me? They say bad things happen, but why would it be you that this particular bad thing happened to? So once you are able to almost excavate, you're able to literally navigate and wade through the tapestry that is your life, you start to see the clues that have been there all along. you start to see the truth about who you are and the gifts. So many people are walking out of gold mines, all dusty, all charred, and they leave their gold behind.
Wow.
Gold is
Tonbra,
what?
you know why I started Ibi Speaks?
Tell me.
Or let me just say this, because what you're saying, first and foremost, I agree that our destination, evolves. So when I first started, I lost my job during the COVID, and I just started to do my blog. So when I first started, I was like, okay, so I want to write a blog because about helping mothers who have had children, so give mother advice. That's what I wanted to do, because at that stage, my first child was about 23, and my last child was how old? She was about 9 or 10. Yeah, 10. So I felt that I've had that. I felt I had something to say, to speak to that space. So I began to write it, and then I felt that, well, because I had to do a lot of research. And then in researching, I realized, you know what? And I'm not bad in researching, I'm good in researching. But I just felt some of the things I know now are obsolete. Like, you can't rub powder on the baby. You can't use some things that we use that were acceptable in the past now. And I felt there was a lot of work. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to do this. But I was writing. And then I said, why didn't I? Then I wanted to write about, women. But I realized that I could do more, that I didn't want to streamline myself, because I had to follow myself. And I had to find myself in a way saying that, but wait a minute, that our lives, our stories are not just ours to tell, but they are content enough to share. That people's stories and experiences are survival kits and streetlights that can help to illuminate the path of people who are coming behind us. So I was no longer afraid to change my website from Go Shop to Baby to One Womanity. And when I felt there was something much more than One Womanity, I changed it to ibinaboenebi.com, because that was my journey and my process. And I wasn't afraid to change and to evolve to that point that I wanted to be. And right now I'm sitting at that point where I say, you know what, ibinaboenebi.com is a reflection of all, or it embodies all that I can be. So that was why I started doing Ibinabo Enebi Ibi Speaks, because I felt that our stories were content enough to share. Because why? Because I feel that everything that happens to us happens for a reason. If you went to my website, if you looked at my about me, I said that I was that girl that was afraid, beaten down by fear. But I knew that inside of me was courage. And so I wanted to, in a way, share that courage to other people, to say that your disappointments are not necessarily the end, but a bend to expand your capacity to do more. Because sometimes it has to be difficult for you to depend not on yourself, but on God. So basically, it's about using your life. I have a sister, she's dead now. One of my friends, she's dead, and my very dear sister. And she went to so many challenges and all. And one day we were having a conversation in her living room, and I said to her that use your life, use your pain. Don't let it waste. I had a quote about pain. I said, when my dad died, I had a quote about pain, and it has become one of my favorite quotes, to say that your pain, your life, is a compost upon which remarkable dreams and lives could germinate from. So yes, Tonbra, you had to go through what you had to go through, because those experiences had to become the compost upon which these lives would thrive. So I don't know, I became motivational, but let me take you back to something that you said that resonated with me. I keep using the word resonate because that's the right word to use. You talk about the misappropriation of our endowments. So you talk about maybe you have a spoon. And of course, we have the salad spoon, we have the soup spoon and all of that, right? So you said that when we misappropriate our endowments, either we overexhaust it or we underserve. So it's either we over or underserve. So can you give us examples on how people misappropriate the endowment?
So you have somebody who maybe has, or you can even use my example. So I
Yeah.
I've always had that real gift for connecting to people, like especially where people weren't, when I felt like, I could feel the way they were feeling. But I was in corporate employment.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. And
Yeah,
you did engineering and all of that.
I did engineering. I still didn't feel like it was the thing for me. Everybody I know went on to get jobs at Halliburton, Shells, and all of that. I didn't feel right. And then I went into finance, investment banking. And whilst I was there, you know what? I was connecting with people, yes, check. I was working as a project manager. So I used a lot of the interpersonal skills that you would need as part of project work. I could corral people, I could get people to collaborate, I could get people to work on a singular outcome, So that was me being using my endowments to serve the world, but it wasn't serving my purpose.
Hmm.
So now I still do the same thing. When you read my bio out, you heard we talked about the more collective. I get help women manifest a higher their selves on a higher level. I help, people bring people together. I'm doing programs, I'm doing summits. I'm still using those skills, those gifts, but now those gifts are serving the purpose to which I was put on earth. Does that make sense?
It does make sense because I feel that sometimes, and listen, there's something, again, you said this, you said you were, of course, when you worked in the investment, setting, you connected with people. So you were able to do the team building, you're able to, that worked for you. So your endowment then was working.
Mm.
But you said that you were using that endowment to serve the people, but it wasn't serving you because you were not in alignment
Mhm.
with exactly what you were supposed to use it for. And I think that is where sometimes the frustration comes in. So some people would say, I can sing, but maybe they're supposed to be music teachers or something. I mean, I'm just thinking because I knew that because yeah, I would say this. Let me share this story because you're making me feel very vulnerable. But it's okay to be vulnerable sometimes. So I was, and again, when you talked about the transient, the level of our manifestation, that's the very transient, aspect of us. Right. So I live in Ireland. That's where I live because my children are here and all of that. And before then, I had an event management outfit that I was doing children's parties and all of that. So when you have then I had my last child because that meant I had to go back and forth Nigeria all the time. But when I had my last child, I used to actually uproot her from her, from her nursery school and all. But then when she was about to start, school proper, I felt, okay, you know what, I have to stay back and make sure that I don't have to pull her back and forth. And then I got a job as a daily assistant. And because again, it was close home, I had to walk around, I had to work in a way that would serve her.
Mhm.
What I mean, because she needed me to be there, she needed me present. So here I've had a successful event management and corporate gifts outfit, but because of her, and because I couldn't do it by proxy, going back and forth, it worked for a while, but it didn't work after a while. I had to now settle in to say, you know what, this is what this is a job I can do to serve her.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing the job, and one day, one of the management changed, and one of them, the owner of the business, one of them, something happened, and I walked into the shop and something happened, and he said to me, in the lines of, I can't quote exactly what he said, but he said to me, listen, it's either you go push on your apron and clean, or by all means leave. And I was like, oops, what?
Wow.
And everybody who worked with me, the women there, the manager, they were all fantastic, and they were absolutely mad because the guy was very brash and harsh and everything. So I went back and I sat down and I said, but I know who I am. I'm made of more, right? That's why I mistook your podcast. I said made of more. And I went back and I said, you know what? I'm going to do my master's. I did my master's. And I said in my thesis, in my acknowledgement, that when he, and I quoted the lines that he said, and I said, I'm made of more. I said, and I thanked him for saying that to me, because I had to go back and say, what? I shook my degree off, shook it, because I had a first degree in English. And again, what happened was that I wanted to be a lawyer, right? Oh, no, I didn't want to be a lawyer. At the time when I was in secondary school, when you were very good in arts, right? The highest expression of the art student was law.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew that there was something about me that the expression of my creativity, of my ability to speak and write and interact with people and to captivate my audience wasn't in law. That I was a writer. But again, at the time when I was growing up, writers or the creatives didn't have didn't have the platform that we have today, where you can say I'm a content creator or I'm a motivational speaker and stuff like that, if you know what I mean. So I now didn't own that aspect of me. But then anyways, when that incident happened, again, I shook up my English degree and I went back to do the master's and I smashed it. And I went back to do a training in teaching English as a second language to non-native speakers. And I passed and I started working on them until COVID came. And then when COVID came, this came. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes things have to happen in a way that maybe we think that we are it's bad and sad, but then it has to be so that we would be in direct alignment with who we are created to be, to work in the purpose that serves us.
Mm-hmm.
Because my purpose as a daily assistant served the people I was working with, but I wasn't serving myself.
I love when I see that you have really come into like you are getting this.
Yeah, because Tonbra, I would say like why I really love this conversation is that when I saw your podcast, what is it now? Let's see it again. The Made for More Collective. Created for more collective. It clicked. A podcast. It clicked because at the time, my mantra was, I am made for more. This can't be it. And again, my life was disconnected and checked because I was constantly in and out of the country. I was in Nigeria, I was in Ireland, I was in Nigeria. So because of my children, right, everything that I wanted to do, I had to put them first. So this is where the transient nature of our manifestation plays. So after a while, I came to the point where I became lost in the translations of the roles that I played and the duties that I performed, in a way that I began to doubt myself. And that is where it makes sense to me when you said that our manifestation is transient.
It is completely transient. And one of the things I often say, and I'm reading from my book here, which is the How to Be Unstoppable. It's on Amazon and everywhere. I write down these 12 laws of purpose. I teach about what it really means for us to, come into that place of purpose. Number 10, the 10th law says, I'm going to read the 10th and the 11th law. A vessel can have a core purpose and still serve multiple functions. Can have a core purpose but still serve multiple functions. And I say it's ultimately
Wow.
created by God to fill a very distinct purpose. So, what this means is that every single thing in you has been fashioned for that particular purpose. But what you must also know is that what you do very, very well, because you like going back to that spoon example, you can use a salad spoon. You can use this have a soup.
Dessert spoon.
Yeah, it's only the ones who are like completely, aware and clued up.
No, 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 no.
No, 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 no. And this is often where people get it confused because not everywhere you fit into is where you belong. Just because
Hmm.
you can slot in, just because you have those you can do it doesn't mean that is what you should be doing. Or that doesn't mean that is you can do it, but that doesn't mean that is your core purpose. So a lot of times people stop, and that is what I use the example of under maximization and over maximization, because people stop, not aware that they're being under maximized, because to them they feel this is it, this is the end all and be all. So I said, what you do well might not be your core purpose. Imagine you were created to be a spoon and you're used for other things. A child might use that same spoon as a weapon, playing with the siblings, throwing the spoon, might use it as a toy, it might use it as a garden tool in this thing, but doesn't mean that spoon is for those things, but it can do those things. Does that make sense? Right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So it doesn't mean that the spoon's core purpose is being truncated by being used differently. It just means that that spoon is not being maximized,
Underserved.
underserved. That's one I wanted to share. And then the other thing I wanted to say is Law 11 says that earthly appraisals are based on functions and not necessarily purpose. So once you go into work and you're doing a great job and your manager says, amazing, Ibinabo, amazing, Tonbra, you've handled this project fantastically well. Sometimes people stop there. They said, this must be what my life is made for. But human beings are inherently selfish. We will
Hmm.
praise you based on what you do for me, not what you are for. I will praise you according to the facet of you I interact with.
And that's beneficial to me.
Beneficial to me. People then get, they just kind of follow that appraisal, that validation, because we always search for
We
validation.
love validation, don't we?
We follow that and they're like, oh my gosh, they said I'm good at it. Oh my gosh, this must be it. So the secret here, Ibinabo, is that we as human beings must not be tied, and this is very important. We must not be tied to ideas and ideals. So what this means is an ideal is what somebody says to like, this is a vision of a particular thing that you have. Don't be tied to outcomes. This is how we do it. This is how it is meant to be. You are a project manager and that is fixed for you. The ideal is that you do this for the rest of your listing. You have an idea that this is how it should be, or you have an ideal, or you have a fixed understanding of its outcome. No, we should live in a state of flow, open to this transient view of life. That as we evolve through life, there will be things that will come, and we must always stay open. We must always stay receptive. We must always know that more is always coming, and we are evolutionary. So we're getting bigger, we're getting better, we're getting more, we're getting deeper. So whenever you're in a place, and this is always a telltale sign, whenever you're in a place and you're starting to feel those pangs of more, that's what I call it. That thing's like, and you can get it right now. You seem, you were saying you were creating this this brand, and everything is here. You've moved and now you feel like you know it. It's great. But when you start to get the pang that there is a next level to pursue, don't tie yourself to this ideal. If I
Of
get
course.
a sense that my podcast has served this time, I'm not going to tie myself there. I'm always opening, and it's people who can't do this that don't evolve. They can't receive more. So we are meant to be evolutionary in life. Like the path of the just gets brighter, gets brighter, gets brighter, gets brighter. Awaiting new instruction, awaiting new insights, awaiting new discoveries about ourselves. I'll leave it there.
Tonbra, my goodness gracious me. So guys, listen, please, if you like this video and you find this conversation valuable, please leave a like and share it. And please also leave your comments in the comment section below. And Tonbra, I want to ask you the next question. Yeah. And it relates to the talked about how we shouldn't be static. So we should allow ourselves to be open, to be fluid, right? To await the next instruction that God has given to us. But is it the same as maybe you do A, and then you're like, okay, I did it for like 3 months. I'm like, this doesn't serve me. Good, I want to do B. And you keep going round and round and round. Is it the same thing as constantly changing your mind and going to a new vision, or what?
So I'm not saying constantly changing your mind. No. You are
Okay.
fixed on that you want to do, and you serve it to your highest potential.
Fantastic.
So when you plateau is when you move to the next. So I'm not saying you decide that you want to be a talk show host, you do it for 3 months and then you decide and you're moving to the next. No, that's not what I'm saying.
Exactly. I wanted to understand that.
That's not what I'm saying. When you serve it, so it's what we should always chase is the manifestation of our highest selves. So in anything that you are doing, it is how you maximize yourself, how you manifest your highest self. That should be the desire in every single human being, that I will pursue the highest calling in every role that I embody. So what I mean by pangs of more is that even in that thing that I want to do now, right? I do it and I do it and I do it, and I feel like there is God, I'm being called to a next level of that thing. So it's a deepening rather than a changing.
Fantastic.
Because if you are already on the path, on the right path, you shouldn't really be doing anything that is shallow or isn't connected to your purpose. So it's you shouldn't, right? So once you start that and you've served the good, you will know this isn't something that someone can teach you. This isn't something that someone can, help. It's being connected to that divinity on the inside of you. You would know. You would know when there is a higher call. When it's, let's come up higher. You've done well in this level, but I'm calling you higher. Now it's time to go. Exactly. So it's moving and it's deepening, and it's not necessarily changing perspective. It's not wishy-washy. It's deepening.
Fantastic. Now, let me ask you the next question. From the way you talk, I can feel that fire, like I said before. But now, even just talking to you, I appreciate the fact that, or the conviction that you have, that you believe every word that you say, and it comes across that way, that your words, you don't just throw your words, you believe absolutely in them. And that brings me to the next question, that you have a relentless desire to help people accept themselves and to rise to their full potential. You have that. So, the topic is avoiding, later life crisis. Now, how does the lack of true identity presents itself in someone's life?
You feel essentially when you don't have an identity in that thing, how does it present itself? You don't feel a connection. There's no alignment.
Yeah.
There's no alignment between every single thing. So you're doing things without purpose. So you're doing, but there's doing without purpose. There's purpose without divinity. There is manifestation without values. So you're just kind of you're doing, but it's not cohesive.
Fantastic. That's why I asked you that question. Tonbra, thank you so much for all the insights that you have given. Now, I want to ask you this one, and it's a big one for me. Now, how would the life of someone that has an understanding of the power of walking in their identity look? Mm-hmm. I think this question is a summation of everything we've talked about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're working purposefully, they're working fully in the light of their purpose. And one of the things I often say is every single one of us, we are lighthouses. So imagine a lighthouse that is by a sea. It's just shining, standing tall, shining, and people who need that light gravitate towards it. Right? So everybody's shining and they now gravitate towards it. So that is what somebody who is living well in their purpose. The people who are connected to you, they gravitate towards that light that is shining. So when you are doing the people that you have been called to serve, they start to come from everywhere and they start to say things like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. Without you, I wouldn't have got this revelation. Because of you, I am doing what I am doing now. Similar to the conversation we had just before we started recording. Look, because of my interaction there, look at what I've been able to birth as a result. So that is when you know that you are really well and truly living in your purpose. First of all, you have a peace about you. You have fulfillment in and of yourself. When you do what you do, you feel like it's a breath of fresh air for yourself. Like, gosh, like you've been holding your breath since, and then finally you take a deep breath, and your belly fills with air, and you're like, oh, finally, you feel at one. You feel incongruence. That is how you know that you're living your purpose.
Fantastic. And when you know that you're living in your purpose, you live a richer, a fuller life in a way that you wouldn't have any form of, crisis of identity, of purpose in the future, right?
Yes. You do live a richer life, you do live a fuller life, and you are content. You're not really, you don't go with the crowd, you don't have shiny object, you don't fall for shiny object syndrome or chasing the next this thing. You don't have FOMO, you don't feel like you're being left behind. You feel content, you feel at peace, you feel in step with yourself, and you don't feel like you're being left behind. You know you're exactly where you need to be.
And that is the power of having an understanding of working in your God-given identity. Thank you so much, Tonbra. Thank you so much, Tonbra. This has been an amazing conversation. Listen, I learned a lot from you today. I've had a re-education, relearning, unlearning, retraining. Look. I have all my notes. Yeah. So, Tonbra, in case somebody is listening to you and saying, listen, I want to hear more of what she's saying, and how can they find you?
Okay, so first, if you want to learn from me, you want to definitely get my book, which is How to Be Unstoppable. It's on Amazon, and you can also get it with links in my bio. But I am on Instagram, Tonbra.Nwosuagwu. So if you can link that in the show notes for today, that would be very good. Thank you, Ibinabo. And then I'm also on my website at tonbra.com. You can find me on my website. You can also send me an email. Send me an
Yeah.
email.
And what's the email?
I'm at tonbra@tonbra.com. So tonbra@tonbra.com. You can join my newsletter. So you can join my newsletter. I'll link that in my Instagram bio. I don't think it's there yet. You can join my newsletter. You can join my Telegram community. I've got a Telegram community of about nearly around 2.5K people. My Telegram community. You can join my Telegram community. You should follow me on YouTube. I'm on YouTube as well. I put out content. I think it's Tonbra TV on YouTube, and I'm also on my podcast where I drop weekly valuable conversations that will catalyze your growth. My podcast is called Created for More the Podcast, and it's coming up to 100 episodes, so it's great. And yeah, that's it. I'm everywhere, so feel free to reach out and say, hey, I caught you on Ibinabo's platform, and yeah, just say hey. I always like to hear from people who have found me through other platforms. And then as I close, I say thank you, Ibinabo. Thank you so much for having me here with you. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I haven't felt like I was teaching. It felt like we were rubbing minds and conversing, and there was a richness that you brought that that was so good in the sense of the questions that you asked that really helped me. Really helped bring out the things that needed to be said. So I say a massive thank you. Well done on what you're doing. Keep doing it and just keep evolving. That's the key thing. Just keep evolving. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And Tonbra, it means a lot to me. And listen, guys, I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for being part of our conversation today. And guys, if you're watching or listening to this video and you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. It's Ibinabo Enebi. And next week, I'm going to be having yet another fantastic episode on this Avoiding the Later Life Crisis series. And I'd like you to join us then. So Tonbra, thank you so much. I'm going to call you, and thanks everybody. Mwah, 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 mwah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now that's it. That's it.